Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. This is Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Mentor Select serves parents who are raising teens. Every week, Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. All while parenting them to be successful adults, focusing on social and emotional development, something that's left out of the classroom, but not in ours. Be sure to subscribe, share, and rate. This is Mentor Select, and this is your host, Derek Phillips.
All right, parents, I'm excited today because we have Derek Butler joining us. He's an emotional responsive coach. How are you, Derek?
Oh, man, I'm doing good, sir. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Oh, pleasure. No doubt about it. So where are you joining us from today?
Oh, man, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland right now, man.
Baltimore. All right. That's what's up. Cool. So we got Derek interviewing Derek. Most people call me Derek.
That threw me off the first time we was together. I'm like, are they talking to me or are they talking to someone? Like, I hear Derek. I'm waiting,
right.
They're rich. Like, what is it? But yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. As you mentioned, we first met, we were doing a podcast together, kind of a panel, and I was really blown away by just your expertise on just different areas and topics related to masculinity and men. But when you first mentioned that you were an emotional responsive coach, I was kind of puzzled for a second. I haven't heard that title before. What does that mean? So you mind telling the audience what is an emotional responsive coach?
That throws a lot of people off. Like, what do you mean responsive, man? But basically, it comes down to is I help men understand their emotions and the emotions of others. Put it that simple. You know what I'm saying? We have to be responsive to what we are thinking and feeling and how these feelings are impacting us. And we have to be responsive to the feelings of others as well and understanding what that means and how that, it all goes hand in hand. And a lot of times as men, man, we're not good with our feelings. We're not good with our feelings. So we got to be more responsive to our feelings. So, emotional responsive coach, brother, just about understanding our feelings and how to manage them and also understanding the feelings of others.
Wow. Yeah, right. Yeah. Like you said, that's a tall order just because, as you mentioned, a lot of men are not good with just handling their emotions, expressing their feelings. And what really stands out to me about that is even the men that are good at, managing their own feelings, now understanding the emotions of other people. That's a whole nother scenario.
Right.
Why is that just as important?
Oh, the thing about it is understanding the emotions of others, man. We have to make room for how other people feel. People are not wrong for how they feel. And a lot of times we want to get caught up in that stigma of just because you don't agree with a way that someone is feeling that they're wrong for how they feel. And we have to remove that. We want to be able to make space for how someone is feeling and not try to make them feel bad about their feelings. And as men, it's hard when somebody like in their feelings, oh, why are you in your feelings? Or, you shouldn't be in your feelings, or you shouldn't feel that way. How can we tell a person how to feel?
Right. It takes some great arrogance on to do that.
Yeah. So it's about making space for the way people feel and how they're feeling. Now, the big difference in that is not allowing someone's feelings, someone's behavior about what they're feeling to impact you or hurt you or make you feel bad or do bad things to you. But it's just about understanding that, hey, I understand I made you feel some type of way or you're feeling some type of way, and that's okay. Right. I'm able to be responsive to what you're feeling.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, understand it, acknowledge it, but you don't necessarily have to adopt it or feel like you have to be wrong. Yeah, it's important. Yeah. And I think during, especially this year with the presidential election, how politics got really divisive, that's a good example of just how people were just angry at others about how they feel or what their positions were.
Yeah, right. And that's critical, man. Like, a lot of times we try to control others' feelings, and that's something that is we're going to lose that battle every time. We can't make people feel how we feel, and with this presidential debate, this last election, man, there was a lot of things, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of angry feelings, a lot of frustrated.
Right.
There was a lot of scared emotions that you've seen coming out through this process, man. And we have to be able to be responsive to that, but not allow someone else's feelings to dictate us and our behavior. And what you
Yeah,
were
exactly.
doing, because the way someone else feels, that was dictating a lot of other people's feelings and like and behavior. So yeah, that's rough, man.
Yeah. So how did you get in this career field? What's your background?
Hey, brother, man, it started with, me and my emotions and
Yeah.
understanding that I was very emotional due to unresolved trauma in my life, man. I was angry.
Okay.
I was aggressive. I come from a single parent household, man. My father was very, abusive and in a drug addicted monster. I watched
Wow.
him, beat my mother like he was a man on countless occasions. And in times I tried to jump in and help out when I was old enough, it was
Right.
things where I would get beat on too. So
Yeah.
on top of being physically abused, I was also emotionally abused and sexually abused. So with those things going on from an early childhood standpoint, man, as I grew older, man, I just grew more confused, more angry. I was being crushed under, a lot of self-limiting beliefs and behaviors, and my emotions. I was a slave to my emotions, and
Okay.
I lost jobs behind it. I lost a lot of relationships. I lost a marriage behind my emotions. Not being able to manage my emotions, not being able to effectively process through my emotions and effectively communicate what I'm feeling. I could always identify what I feel. But when it
Okay.
came to processing through and communicating the proper way, one of my mentors used to tell me all the time, man, AD, you got to take some of that steam off of what you're saying. Like, take some of the steam off of it, man, because that thing coming
Gotcha.
out hot. So
Scaring people.
yeah. And being that I was always a bigger man,
Right.
people were able to use that. Oh, I'm aggressive and I'm scared and I'm, they're fearful of. They was always able to use that against me, like they're intimidated by me, even when I felt I was speaking calmly and clearly. But because
Right.
I was also so very direct, a lot of times my message got lost in the delivery. So.
Okay.
And that came back to me not being able to manage my emotions, man. That came back to just, the anger and the things that were swirling around inside of me, man. So I had to learn to process these things, learn how to better manage my emotions, be more responsive to what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, and why. And with that, I realized that, and it's so tough, Derek, because a lot of times as men, we feel we're the only ones going through something. But I
Right.
realized that I'm not the only one who's going through this. I'm not the only one who's battling this type of issue, man, when it comes to our emotions, when it comes to, being scared to say I'm hurt, being scared to say that I'm not feeling my best, being scared to say that, this is bothering me, because we get caught up in our false sense of masculinity, man. So it was
Right.
easy for me to display anger and rage than it is to say I'm scared, I'm hurt, I feel ashamed. So I was battling those feelings, or how I felt about my feelings. And that was
Okay.
causing even more turmoil. So basically, man, I started really putting in the inner work, man, and going through the processes and got with a therapist, man, and I got with a coach, and I realized that I always been motivating, I always been empowering. That's one thing that's just come natural to me, man. And
Okay.
one of those things that was easy for me to do, but I was getting in the way of what I was doing for other people because I couldn't manage myself. So it was like, how can I help other people and add value to others when I'm not even managing my emotions properly? When I'm not even making the right choices when it comes to my emotions and what I need to do, what I need to do to move forward in my life. So I started doing
Right.
it in the work, man. I started doing it in the work and looking inwards, man, and addressing the unresolved trauma, man, addressing the effects of the unresolved trauma in my life. And that just opened up a lot of doors for me, man, and enabled me to not just, because I was already walking in the path, but enabled me to walk more firmly, more confidently, more proudly
Okay.
in my path, man, and truly be able to be out of the way, because it wasn't about me anymore. I'm out of the way, and it's about adding value to others and being to help other men get past those emotional hurdles in their life.
Wow. That's great. And I really love the fact that it started with you, because there's a lot of, I think, coaches out there, mentors, people who can give the best advice, but they're not leading by example. They're not actually following their own advice. So
Absolutely.
you realize, like, hey, I have to manage myself first before I can truly empower others and lead others. So that's fantastic.
One of those things, do as you're told, not as you're shown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to be a hypocrite, man, so I had to focus inwards.
Exactly. I'm a big believer in that. Definitely lead from the front. So, Derek, my audience primarily with teenagers, parents that are raising teenagers. So I'm sure for some of the parents listening, that resonates a lot with them. Basically, we say you had that just unresolved emotions and you're a slave to your emotions.
Yeah.
I guess can you give parents some advice as far as how they can help their teen boys really stop being a slave to their emotions and start going down that path of really managing them in an effective way?
The biggest thing, Derek, and it's hard because as parents, and I'm not a parent. I'm gonna say that first and foremost. I have no children, but I do have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I also have been a son, so I understand what that's looking like. So I'm not gonna try to talk like I know, but a lot of my work revolved around young people, man. Between when I was coaching football, I was teaching in high school. That was where my work first started, man. I loved working with young people, especially our
You've been on the front lines.
That's where young boys in color. And this is a little background. I also worked in juvenile corrections for many years and things like that. So I understand. So when it comes to our young boys and their emotions, man, we first have to make space for how they're feeling. We have to make a message that it's okay to feel what you feel. The first thing I always tell the young people I come in contact with, man, is you're allowed to feel what you feel. That's okay. Your emotions are not the enemy. There's nothing wrong with what you feel, because a lot of times we want to battle what we feel. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I don't even know I'm even mad. No, you're allowed to be mad, because your feelings are natural responses to what is going on in and around you. So you're allowed to feel how you feel. The next step is, it's important that we teach our young people to not allow those feelings to dictate their behaviors. Okay? So the first thing we need to do with that, man, is once we make space for their feelings, we need to work on them communicating and expressing their feelings. Okay? So I usually break this down into 4 steps. The first step is acknowledging what you're feeling, acknowledging that, I'm not feeling my best. I'm angry. Work on identifying those things that you're feeling. Next, work on accepting, like, okay, I'm allowed to feel this way. This is okay. It's all right. Accept what you feel. Don't fight it, because it's natural. Next is work on expressing. Now, one thing I tell parents all the time, man, is, your son might not want to talk about it initially. Expressing feelings doesn't always mean talking about it. We have to get in the habit of actually writing down our feelings, journaling. And we don't want to say journaling, because sometimes it's a stigma around journaling. You think of it like a diary. Writing, putting our feelings on paper, writing it out, expressing it, working through it. Just, hey, right now I'm feeling. And you just open up with a lead sentence, right now I'm feeling, and having them finish that and just work through those things. And then next is just taking action to move through the feelings. Because one thing we don't want to do is stay stuck in those emotions. When it comes to the word emotion, we're supposed to be in motion through the feelings. And a lot of times where major issues come into play is that when we sit in those emotions, when we try to bury them or we try to avoid them, or like I say, play emotional dodgeball. We can't do it. We have to allow those emotions, acknowledge what they are, accept them for what they are, express them, and then take action to move through them. Okay? And that is talk about them with somebody. Talk about express, why you feel the way you feel, what happened, and clear the air. What we don't want to do is allow them emotions to fester, allow them to build, and then keep on piling things on top of it, and then eventually they're going to come out, and it's going to come out the wrong way. Yeah,
ticking time bomb.
Yeah, just because we don't acknowledge them don't mean they go away.
They
stay right there, and they fester, and they're going to come out regardless. So it's important that parents make space for what their kids are feeling, and not just tell them, man, you better get yourself together. You better fix your face. And you know how many times I heard that coming up? You better fix your face. Yeah, so
I experienced the same.
And we have to make room and just really break down and get your youth to understand that Your feelings are not the enemy. You're okay to feel what you're feeling. If you practice those 4 steps right there, man, and just be consistent with them, you will start seeing changes in them. We have to change the stigma around feelings. And we had to, separate that, oh, you're soft or you're weak because, you're in your feelings. You hear that. How many times have you heard, man, get out your feelings, man?
Too often, yeah.
Get out your feelings. So, no, get in your feelings. Just
Exactly.
don't stay there. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Feel your feelings without allowing your feelings to dictate your behavior.
Yeah, that's the key. Absolutely. No doubt about it. And I'm a new parent. A daughter, she's 1.5 years now. But I just find it fascinating to see like how when she gets emotional or gets angry, like one minute she's so happy, and in a split second later she's crying and having a temper tantrum. I just found it fascinating to see. Like, at this point, obviously she can't really control her emotions and understand emotions she's feeling. But in reality, I can imagine, like I see adults that they're really doing the same behavior in a sense, where they just can't control their emotions and it completely consumes them and it dictates their behavior, just like a toddler.
Absolutely. And what we have to do, man, the most critical thing, Derek, is just making space, man. Making space where people are feeling. So many times people's feelings are invalidated, man, or dismissed. And that's the worst thing we want to do, man. Like if your son is mad or if your child is mad, allow make space for that. Acknowledge that. Validate their feelings, because what we don't want to put the message out is that your feelings don't matter. What you are feeling is not important. So we want to, even though as a parent you might not agree with what they're feeling but we have to validate and make space for what they're feeling, whether they're disappointed, upset, hurt, whatever. We want to get them working through those feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. I'm certain I wrote down those 4 steps. I'll definitely keep that checklist. I think that's awesome. Now, going back to your background, did you grow up in Baltimore?
No, I'm originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, man. Amish.
Okay. Amish country. Okay. Big difference now from Amish country to Baltimore.
It is, but I grew up because of the nature of how I grew up, man. I moved around so much, man. I'm a citizen of, the United States, but I have roots in every state. Just it seems like it's on the East Coast.
Wow. Got it. Certainly. But yeah, the reason I asked you that, Baltimore, it's a tough place for a lot of kids to grow up, especially a lot of challenges that young boys are facing, whether they're still avoiding the gangs, drugs, things like that. For kids growing up in the inner city and just those tough environments, I guess, obviously they're dealing with a lot of unresolved trauma and experiencing trauma maybe on a daily basis. I guess, is it anything in addition that you would advise or suggest for kids growing up in that type of environment outside of those 4 steps? That pretty much covers a lot, but anything in addition?
Yeah, it does. We're looking at right now, man, we're looking at community trauma. And that's that's kind of a new term that's coming up, man. It's really grown. But that community trauma, man, if you look at the things going on inside our Black community, just in every city, especially, we talked before about where you originated from. Right. So if you look at the community trauma that goes on there, and there's the statistics saying that teenage boys are twice as likely as girls to experience violent crimes. So if you're looking at this on the way to and from school, man, people losing friends and buddies and things like that, man, or the shootings that's going on and all the police activity, and it's community trauma. And no matter how hard you get to, how hard you work with these kids, and no matter you do a lot of things to, provide supports in school and things like that, regardless, of coming back to that community. You're coming back to the place that is ravaged by crime, ravaged by poverty, ravaged by drugs and people making bad choices. So it's important to instill in our young people, man. And what I do is I try to get them to understand, man, that everything comes down to our choices. Everything comes down to our choices and how we respond to things. So what I get them to do is focus on the choices that they make and how they respond to the things going on in and around them. Okay? Yeah. That's important, man. Like, we're all dealing with something. And one quote that I use with them all the time, man, is, it's a quote that I love by Jim Rohn that says, life is 10%. Well, let me clear this up. I see several times it's attributed to Jim Rohn, then I also see it's attributed to Lou Holtz. But either way, the quote goes, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you handle it. So I,
Right.
I always break it down to kids. We have, $10 or, $90. We'd rather have
Yeah.
$10,000 or $90,000. Let's focus on what's more important, because things happen to us all the time. Like, the commonness of trauma, man, is so prevalent, and a lot of times we want to ignore it or we want to avoid it. So what I try to get the young people to do is do those 4 steps, man. Acknowledge what's going on with them, acknowledge where they're at, accept that there's things that were done that can't be undone, but also to accept that there's things that can be done. There's choices that you can make to move forward, man. And then, express yourself, man. Talk about what you're seeing. Talk about what you're hearing. Talk about the way it makes you feel. Get that out. And then lastly, man, is just about, taking action to move forward, making the choices that align with the outcomes that you want and desire, making choices that align with the things that you truly want in this life. Now, to back it up a little bit further, we do have to have gain clarity around, their purpose, their vision, and the things that bring them joy, because that all goes into it. But the main thing, man, is just getting them to acknowledge, accept, express, and then take action to work through where they're at currently so they can get to where they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Totally agree with that. Yeah, community trauma. I hadn't heard that phrase yet, but I understand the whole concept. And like so many of them are dealing with, it's like the PTSD that we talked about on your podcast. I certainly had PTSD well before I went to Iraq, Afghanistan in the military, just because, I was living in a war zone. And it's so unfortunate that that's the same story so many boys are dealing with now. Since living in the war zone, they're seeing their friends get killed and drugs and all these different traumatic experiences. It's extremely important for them to be able to acknowledge their emotions and not just bottle that all up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because it's tough, man, and I feel for you so bad. To be honest with you, Derek, when I first started my business, man, DB Empowers, it wasn't for adults, it wasn't for men. I was working with youth. I was speaking in schools and juvenile facilities, man. I was really big on helping our young people navigate through the difficulties that come from unresolved, overwhelming life experiences, man, and let them know that help them move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, and let them realize that you don't have to stay stuck in the situation that you are. Your circumstances do not have to determine your outcome. So what I was I was going through speaking and teaching and helping them focus on it's a tool that I use. It's called the Self Model, and it's by a lady named Judy Bloom, and it's basically trauma-informed care. And that's why I term what I do trauma-informed motivational empowerment. But what it is, man, it gets them to focus on, because when it comes to trauma, no matter what type of trauma it is, and me personally, I don't focus on specific or individual trauma, like a specific event. That's not important to me. And I'm not dismissing the things that happen, but what I'm trying to get you to understand, I'm not problem focused. I'm solution oriented, solution focused and results oriented.
Okay.
So when it comes to trauma, no matter what type of trauma that you dealt with or you experienced, it falls into 4 key categories of disruption. And they are safety. Okay. People who have issues with trauma, have a history with trauma, they have issues with being safe. Now, safety breaks down into 4 additional categories. You have physical safety. That means being safe with self and others. You have mental safety or psychological safety, and that means being safe with your thoughts, man. Then you have social safety, being safe out in society, out in your community. And then you have moral safety, like having an inner guiding system. Okay. So now everybody who has some sort of trauma either struggles in that area of safety. Next is emotions. Cannot manage their emotions. Think emotions are the enemy. They either struggle with identifying, processing through, or expressing, or all in one. When it comes to their emotions. Next is loss. People who have a history of trauma and struggle with trauma have difficulty dealing with loss, whether understanding what loss is. And loss is a part of life, but loss, it just doesn't mean like a loss of life. It means like it can be like loss of safety, it can be loss of value, loss of self. So there's different forms of loss that we have to work through to understand. And also loss is actually equated with change. Sometimes people feel that when things change, like they're losing something. So it's about getting people who dealt with trauma to understand that not all loss is bad, that sometimes we need to lose things so we can move forward. We need to let go of things so we can move forward. Okay. And then future. when it comes to future, a lot of people who have dealt with trauma or traumatic stress in their lives, they have problems or issues envisioning and taking action for a better future. So I speak to the kids in those 4 areas of safety, emotions, loss, and future, man, and how to get them moving forward through that so they can be their best self.
Wow. Yeah, that's what's up. Indeed. Wow. Yeah, that's deep. Giving us a lot of gems there.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, clear this is a topic you're very passionate about, and you're certainly obviously following your calling. You're meant for this kind of work.
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, a phrase that I think I'd never heard until I met you when you talk about just men having that false sense of masculinity. Can you elaborate on what that is?
Well, male socialization is about being tough, man. It's about, trying to do whatever you can, man, to deny any kind of vulnerability, sensitivity, or any internal hurt and pain, man. And, man's greatest fear, study shows that man's greatest fear is humiliation. No man wants to be humiliated. No man wants to feel like people are taking advantage of him or laughing at him, like they're the butt of everybody's joke. So when we try to avoid our feelings, man, we're trying to avoid is being humiliated, being looked at like we're soft or something's wrong with us. Man, it's deep, man, because I'm going to throw out a fact to you, man. 16% of men report childhood sexual abuse, right? Okay. That's only 16% that's reported. The thing about it is when it comes to men and trauma, when it comes to men and overwhelming life experiences, that is one of the most underreported. Yeah. So what it is a lot of men do not want to deal with those issues, do not want to deal with the things of their past because of the shame, guilt, and humiliation that goes with that. Because they feel like as a man, I'm supposed to be able to protect myself. I'm supposed to be able to make sure I'm good. And when a man feel like they can't protect themselves when they were abused, or if a man feel like they can't, keep yourself safe, man, it brings on a whole different level of shame, guilt, and humiliation, man. So the thing about it is we got so many men being crushed on the societal demands to be tough. So what we have to do, man, is not get caught up in what society says manhood is or masculinity is, but identify that for ourselves, because there's different levels of, masculinity. It's not a one size fits all, phrase or term when it comes to masculinity. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And when I look at it, I'm actually doing a study now. I'm about to put a post out, but there was, I don't know, you remember the movie Gladiator?
Yeah.
That was, one of my favorite movies. And there was a scene in there right before he kills his dad. And they were talking about being a man. It goes to what we're talking about. And his dad sent him a long letter about what it is to be a man and a leader and things like that. And he said he read the letter and he didn't fit any of the things on that letter. You know what I'm saying? And I heard
not
him.
One.
Like, there's other things that I have that make me a man, that make me a leader.
Right.
And, and it's one of those things like this list that is compiled by society means, saying you got to be tough. You have to show no emotions. That doesn't make you a man. And
exactly. Makes you a robot.
Subscribing to that belief, man. So, we have to, what I'm working on doing, man, within my work and everything I do, man, is changing that male narrative. We're trying to shine light on actually what people think being a man is to actually what it is every day, day in and day out, to be a man, what manhood really is. And it's not about being tough. And don't get me wrong, man. Like, we want to be able to protect our family. But that doesn't equate your manhood, because not every man is going to be able to, put their hands on a man and stop them from violating them or do anything like that. But there's other ways that a man is able to protect.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, we can't get caught up in that pressure, man, and those societal demands to be tough and show no type of vulnerability, sensitivity, or anything like that, man.
Yeah, that's a great point. And going back to that protection aspect, a lot of times men are looking at it one-dimensional, thinking physical protection. But hey, are you protecting your family financially, emotionally, all these other ways?
Yes.
And it's just one way, that's a single point of failure.
Absolutely.
And that's how the old saying go. Like somebody always tougher than you and bigger than you. So
yeah. My granddad used to tell me that all the time, man. He said, "You want to run into somebody, you think you're Billy, you're Billy Bad behind, but there's another Billy Bad behind out there that's a little bit bad."
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you can't beat everybody. That's what I tell my young people. You can't beat everybody. There's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't advocate violence, but I do advocate for protection. And
right. Standing up for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I mentioned previously I had the honor of being on your podcast. It was a lot of fun. Tell the listeners about your podcast.
Oh, man. Well, what we have is the Made Men podcast. And what we're doing, man, is Made Men, we're playing off the term of, the Italian mafioso, and, to be a made man. Like, that's something special. You're great. You did something. You're accomplished. You're there. So I put a little twist on it, man. And I broke it down to, made men. And made is motivated, accessible, disciplined, and expressive men. And that's what that MADE stands for, man. And what we're doing, man, is we're, dismantling society's false sense of masculinity, and we're changing our male narrative. And I bring on, everyday men, man, that is, going through that struggle of fatherhood, of being a husband, of, being a provider, a protector, and we're breaking it down, and we're shedding light on what it means to be a man to them. What is their definition of manhood or masculinity, and how they identify with their own concepts, and not being crushed by society demands to, determine what a man is, or that bar that society claims, or, that people feel a man should be. So, we come on, man, we just talk through it, man. We talk about what, manhood meant to them when he was coming up. What was your definition of a man, and how much have it changed over the years? So, I started this on a whim. Like, it was something that somebody challenged me to do just out the blue. Like, yo, you need to do your podcast. Because I've been talking about doing it for a long time, and it changed, and it, grew and evolved over the years, man. I just jumped, like when I jumped into it, brother, like I just jumped into it because I kind of had the basic concept, and we just started doing it. And every interview is so powerful, man, because we're bringing on everyday heroes, man, and they get to tell their story about what it is, what their take on manhood and masculinity is, what their journey has been from a young boy to the man they are today, man. And everybody wants to be able to tell their story. Everybody should be able to tell their story, and everybody wants to be the hero of their own story. So what I do is I bring on people, man, and we acknowledge the heroism in them. We acknowledge the great things that they're doing through their journey, through their outlook, and through their perspective on manhood.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. And that's kind of the same concept behind my podcast. I want everyday people, they're real heroes. You may not hear their stories. It's not going to be on the news or in movies or whatever. But hey, it's people every day that's on the front lines, putting in work and changing people's lives, making a big difference. So those are people I want to highlight just like you. So that's awesome,
man. And I appreciate you doing this, brother. I appreciate what you got going on, man, and the platform that you provide people with, man. It's amazing, brother.
Yeah, we all got to do our part. We change one person's world. We're certainly changing the world. So that's what it's about.
Yes, sir.
Derek, you definitely give us a lot of gems throughout this interview. I just love talking to people that are so passionate about what they're doing and really focused on empowering others, inspiring others, and making a difference. As we get ready to wrap up this interview, is there any closing words of advice you want to leave the listeners with?
Man, I just want to say, man, that just be mindful of where you at, what you got going on, what you're feeling. It's okay to feel what you feel, as long as you don't allow those feelings to dictate your behavior. We have to be more mindful and responsive to our feelings and the feelings of others without trying to control what other people are feeling. Feelings aren't the enemy. You're allowed to feel what you feel. The key is, man, it's about understanding those feelings and not allowing those feelings to dictate your behavior.
That's great. Derek, how can people get in contact with you and also listen to your podcast?
So, my main page, I'm on Derek Butler at LinkedIn. And then you can reach me at Derek Butler also on Facebook, and then DB Empowers on Instagram. The podcast is Made Men. You can find that on all podcast streaming platforms. You can also go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to that, click the bell to get the notifications. I have a podcast dropping every Monday. That's why it's called Made Men Mondays. And you can reach me at Derek Butler Empowers on YouTube. You can follow that channel.
Fantastic. Well, Derek, again, I appreciate you taking time out your busy day to share your wisdom with the Mentor Select listeners. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, thank you for having me, Derek. I really appreciate what you're doing, man, and continue to be on the lookout for all the great things you're bringing into this world, brother.
You've been listening to Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Hosted by Derek Phillips. Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. We get it. That's why Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. That's why we do the show. Be sure to share Mentor Select with other parents of teens. Follow us on social media at Mentor Select to stay up to date on the latest tips, strategies, and resources for parenting teens. Send your questions and comments to derek@mentorselect.com. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Till next time, this is Mentor Select.